Hello, and welcome to A Beginner's Guide to the Barber of Seville. So to start, the Barber of Seville, or Il Barbiere di Siviglia, was written by Gioacchino Rossini, and it is usually performed in Italian. This opera is an opera buffa. Well, what does that mean? It means that it's a comic opera, usually with un buffo, or think buffoon, some sort of foolish character at its center. It falls within the classical range of classical music. However, there are many elements of bel canto appearing. What does bel canto mean? Bel canto means literally beautiful singing. So it focuses very much on the singer and all of the tricks and amazing gymnastics that a singer can perform. Bel canto is typically characterized by lots of what is called coloratura. And coloratura means lots of vocal ornamentation, those tips and tricks that we were talking about. So things like runs and trills and grace notes and arpeggios, cadenzas, usually that are quite fast-paced. They don't have to be, but they often are. The orchestration is often supportive, but not stellar, in order to let the vocalists truly shine. So what on earth goes on in Barber? Well, we start by meeting Count Almaviva. And Count Almaviva has seen Rosina when they were in Madrid and completely fallen head over heels for her. So much so that he has followed her all the way back to Seville in order to try and woo her. However, Rosina's guardian, Dottor Bartolo, has his own ideas about who Rosina is going to marry, namely himself. And so he is keeping her locked away from the world in order to make sure that he can marry her and get his hands on her and her fortune. So Count Almaviva enlists the help of Figaro, the town barber, to help him try and get into this house and woo Rosina away from Dottor Bartolo. And of course, in the process, hijinks and mishaps galore ensue. This opera was originally the first of 3 plays. So Rossini used that play as a basis and transformed it into the opera that we now know. Barbers really did do everything in the 18th century. They gave shaves, haircuts like we know now. They also did wig making, bloodletting, amateur dentistry, delivering letters, anything you could think of, they did. Thus, Figaro really would have been all over town knowing everybody's business because everyone would have needed him for something. So later on in the opera, when he boasts about how important he is and how good he is at his job, he kind of is justified. Also, during the shift between the 17 and 1800s, all over the world, but including in Spain, there was a shift occurring between arranged marriages, which had been the norm, to allowing couples to marry for love. And this was a very difficult shift for people of the older generation to come to terms with. So we can really see that in Dottor Bartolo's mind, he feels that he is right. He is doing the right thing by trying to keep Rosina for himself and to keep her from following her passions. Of course, nowadays, we don't see that as right at all, and certainly Rosina wouldn't have felt that it was right even at the time. And that's not to say that we should be supporting Dottor Bartolo at all, but it does make his character a little bit deeper and a little bit more human. Thus, Rosina and Dottor Bartolo's relationship really could have happened that a woman's choice of spouse could have been endangered by the old-fashioned ideas of the older generation. Barber of Seville is full of major recognizable moments and themes. The first of which is the overture. The first thing you hear in the opera will probably sound very familiar to you. Now, I have linked down below a video where you can go and listen to this overture while I talk about it. I can't include it here myself due to copyright issues. You will probably recognize this overture from all over popular culture. Potentially from Bugs Bunny. That was my first introduction to this opera. The cartoon Rabbit of Seville uses almost the full overture to the Barber of Seville, and it does it incredibly well, which is why it's still one of my favorite cartoons of all time. This overture is also unique in that it does work in many musical themes from the opera itself. We are used to overtures working in all sorts of musical themes from the rest of the work, such as in Broadway musicals. Not all operatic overtures do that, however. Some do, and this one does. But many are quite simply beautiful pieces that illustrate the overall theme of the opera, rather than working in individual themes from arias within the work itself. The next major musical moment that everyone has heard at some point in their life is Figaro's opening aria, Largo al factotum. Now, a factotum, as you may have heard, my particular favorite definition is in Monarch of the Glen, is that a factotum is a gopher, as in go for coffee, go for sandwiches, someone to run errands for other people. And in this aria, Figaro boasts about how much he does for everybody in the town, how good he is at it, and how important he is and essential to the town, and how lucky he is to live this way. In this aria, you can sense Figaro's pride and boasting through both the lyrics and the music. The line, the dynamics are loud and bombastic, and all of the coloratura helps him show off just as much as his skills in the town do. Later on in the aria, as Figaro keeps getting busier and busier, you can sense an underlying panic and momentum. The orchestration starts becoming faster and faster underneath him as he goes, until finally we hit the famous Figaro, which is a real thing. But it's not Figaro shouting his own name just for the fun of it, as I thought it was when I was little. It's him showing how everyone else in the town is calling for him to do a variety of things, and it just builds and builds to such intensity that he can't deal with it all at once. He's that in demand. But because he's that in demand, it gives him the opportunity to show off and speed up again after that, and repeat almost an entire verse at double speed. It is incredibly difficult to do, but it is such fun to listen to. You can't not have fun listening to this aria. I have linked two versions of Figaro's aria here. The first is a full uncut version from the 2007 Metropolitan Opera production of Il Barbiere, starring Peter Mattei. It has no subtitles, so I have also linked to Aria database so you can read the lyrics along with the video so you know what exactly Figaro is saying each and every time. I have also linked the second half of Figaro's aria from the 2016 Glyndebourne production of Il Barbiere, starring Bjorn Berger, which does have subtitles of its own. The next major musical moment is sung by Rosina, who can be played by either major female vocal part in opera. She can be sung by a soprano or by a mezzo-soprano, who just has a slightly lower vocal range than a soprano would. And this aria is called Una voce poco fa. It's the first time we're introduced to Rosina. So This aria has to do everything to show off all sorts of different facets of her character. It starts off at quite a slow, reasonable pace, but there's a determinedness about it. And the slight bit of slyness starts to creep in towards the beginning. And this is where you need to see it sung, which is why I have included 2 different versions for you to listen to. And so you watch it and you think, okay, Rosina is expressing her love for Lindoro, which is the assumed name that the Count is going under. Great, she's a girl, she's in love. But there's so much more to her than that. That determinedness and slyness that you start to hear in the music hints that there's something more to her. But in the second half of this aria, we really start to see Rosina come out. And that is in the section which begins Io sono docile. Io sono docile starts with major type scales, and she's describing herself. She's saying, I am sweet, I am respectful, I am obedient. But when she gets to I am obedient, io sono obbediente, that line, obbediente, ends with an accidental as the penultimate note. It's a note that doesn't belong in that major scale. So we begin to suspect that Rosina isn't being entirely serious when she describes herself this way. There's that slyness again, there's a sense of humor, there's something more to her than that. She's more of a trickster than we originally thought. This continues in that same passage, in the language. If you listen very carefully to the Italian, she begins every line with io sono this, io sono that, I am this, I am that. But in the next couple of lines, she says, me lascio reggere, me fo guidar, which is no longer I am governable, but it becomes I can be ruled, I can be guided. So this hints that we're not going to see her always being ruled and guided, because she won't like it very much. She then moves into a section about, but when I am crossed in my desires, I will do this and that and the other. I will be a viper. I will do all of these things. There are no more conditional verbs anymore of, well, I can be. No, they are firmly future tense. I will be a viper. I will do anything I can to get what I want. And the massive coloratura opportunities she has during these sections helped her to show off her mischievousness and her slyness and that those trickster traits that she can use to get her way, like she's saying. There are massive shifts in tempo, and you can play with pauses. You can't not have fun watching Rosina act this aria, because there are so many shifts in her thinking and her mood for the singer to play with. I have linked 2 versions of this aria for you to listen to. One has subtitles. It is from the Metropolitan Opera's 2007 production of Il Barbiere, where Joyce Di Donato, a mezzo-soprano, is singing Rosina. I have also linked a video with no subtitles from the Opera Bastille's version of Il Barbiere from earlier this year in 2020, where the soprano Lisette Oropesa sings Rosina. They both include all of these moments that I describe, but each singer has decided to play Rosina a little bit differently and use those elements in a different way. So I would highly encourage you to watch both of those arias. If, of course, none of the videos that I have linked will work, you are welcome to type in the aria titles into YouTube on your own and find a different recording and listen to it that way. That's the beauty of opera, is that you can listen to many different versions and find something new in the character each and every time. And of course, there are many, many more fabulous arias in this production, but I think I've gone on long enough for now, so I will let you find out about the many more wonderful arias When you watch a version yourself, I would highly recommend that you track down a version. My particular favorites are the 2016 production from Glyndebourne, starring Bjorn Berger and Danielle Denise, as well as either of the Met Opera productions of Il Barbiere. This could be the 2007 production, starring Joyce DiDonato, Peter Mattei, and Juan Diego Flores, or the later version starring Lawrence Brownlee and Isabel Leonard. Both are fantastic casts, as long as it's still done in Italian. Please let me know down below what are your thoughts on any of these arias. Are there any that you would have also included? Have you never seen the opera but you're excited to see it? Have you seen a version that I haven't that you think was particularly wonderful? Please let me know down below. I would love to chat with you about any and all things opera. And until next time, be safe, be well, and happy listening. Bye everyone.